Hello, welcome to another episode of the First Time Founders podcast, the show where we talk about how to start a business from nothing and grow it into something meaningful. I'm Rob Lydiard. I was the founding CEO of a software business called Yapster that was acquired in 2022. And I'm now an implementer of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, which means I work with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial leadership teams, help them get what they want from their business. Today I'm speaking with Jonny White, who's the founder of TicketTailor, a really successful, entirely bootstrapped SaaS business that does about 1 million tickets a month. So helping organisers, event organisers, sell tickets to allow people to gain admission to whatever it is that they're doing. You've probably used TicketTailor in your personal life. Now, the thing that's interesting about Jonny's story is he's an incredibly thoughtful, purposeful guy. As you'll hear when you listen to the episode, he's been able to leverage the success of his business to support good causes, to share the proceeds of growth with his team, and just generally to make him feel good about the life he's leading and the role that his business is playing within his life. But when you talk to Jonny, what you realize is that he had to make some pretty difficult trade-offs at the beginning of the journey in order to end up with the freedoms and what you might think of as privileges at the state he's currently at now. So I wanted to have this conversation so that if you're a first-time founder that cares about a life of purpose and where money's important, but only as a vehicle for achieving other things that you care about, you're quite likely going to need to make some difficult choices now in order to preserve that freedom for later. Many of us unthinkingly hire people, partner up with people, take financing from people in such a way that it limits our ability to run the business that we really want, live the life that we really want later. So I hope you find this episode instructive, inspiring. I certainly did. So without further ado, I give you Jonny White of TicketTailor. Jonny, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this, mate.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Today we're going to talk trade-offs and purpose. I guess the only way we can make that sort of relevant in context for folks is if we start at the end, but we're going to spend most of our time at the beginning of your journey. Do you want to tell folks about TicketTailor, like what the business is, what your life kind of looks like today? People listening, a lot of them are going to be early in their journey, so they're probably just imagining building a great business, right? Which of course you've done. But would you mind just explaining to people like how many employees you've got, like what the service is and does?
Sure.
You know, the kind of how many people are involved, sort of founders, investors, all that kind of stuff. So then we can go back to the beginning and put it in context as to how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my company's called TicketTailor. We are an event ticketing platform, and we are basically like a software platform that helps. We see ourselves as a software platform that helps event organisers sell tickets online. We make it easy for them to do that. We work with thousands of event organisers all around the world, but our team is exclusively based in London. We're a team of 20 employees in London, and then we have a remote team of 10 contractors on our customer support team who are kind of all over the world to cover all the time zones. Our platform processes about 1 million tickets every month. And we work with clients of all sizes. You know, we've had a lot of organic growth, so we see a lot of very small clients. You know, people running yoga workshops with 10 people attending, through to our biggest customers. Being like water parks selling tens of thousands of tickets, and so real variety there. We're bootstrapped as well. We don't have any investors, which is really good. And we're about. We started in 2010, so we're 14 years old, been going a long time. And, I guess we're pretty under the radar. We're not especially famous as a brand. As I said, we're called TicketTailor. You may or may not have heard of us, but you maybe have bought tickets through our platform without realizing it. We're often quite white label and quite behind the scenes. So, our platform plugs into websites as a widget. So that's where we're at.
And do you have to do board meetings and all that sort of stuff? Like, how do decisions get made at TicketTailor? If folks are thinking of themselves being in your seat, they're the founder, but they need to bring people on the journey. Most people start businesses in pursuit of freedom. Can you just talk about the level of freedom you do and don't have in the context of TicketTailor?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yeah, I mean, I suppose I have an amazing leadership team, and so the MD and director of operations, director of product, and a director of tech. And what's amazing about that, and it wasn't easy to get that in place, but
We're
what's
going to get to
amazing
that.
about getting that in place is uh, like my feeling of responsibility has changed quite drastically from feeling responsible for everything to feeling like, okay, I just need to enable these people to do awesome work, and then everyone else reports into them. So I guess like, yeah, we have management meetings every fortnight. They're very relaxed, and then we have like quarterly planning and kickoffs, every quarter, and then we do like vision stuff every year as well. Um, but yeah, I guess, I'm someone who finds that stuff. I mean, we were just chatting before the podcast about what's going on at the moment, and we're doing quarterly planning at the moment, and it's stuff that I find very boring. So I try to avoid it as much as possible. It's all very important, but I guess like, yeah, we very much optimize for being lean, and being lean. The more time we can spend making or creating impact, the better. And quite often meetings and planning and things like that is like, actually, is you're not making at that point. So we're very keen to kind of keep all that stuff as minimal as possible, so everyone can do the work they need to do.
So and so you don't have to write monthly investor updates. If you want to give to charity, give to yourself, you don't need anyone specific's permission for that. You just need to make sure you don't lose the, like, you've obviously got to motivate and inspire the team. But in terms of, you don't have some venture guy reading
Yeah,
your
no, we've got no one external. Like, we're completely working for ourselves, which is it's just a huge blessing, and it also poses a bit of a challenge as well, especially when it comes to growth and why we're growing as well, which is quite a big part of our story. Because I think for a lot of businesses, growth isn't a choice. You've got to grow because you've promised investors. We said we were going to do this, and we need to deliver on it. And that's what all the so much pressure can come from those promises made in the early days. But we don't have that, and so actually we've had a few kind of like midlife crisis moments as a business. Whereas like, what are we doing? Why are we growing? Which is a strange thing. It's a strange thing to feel like, oh yeah, the business is going well. Why is that a problem? And the problem is like, well, what are we getting out of bed for? How do I motivate the team around growth, and why are we growing? Like, of course, there's lots of things that jump to mind of like, well, growth is good fun. It's like good for development and all these kind of things. But for some reason, like, a lot of that stuff didn't feel like enough. And so we've done a lot of work as well on bringing purpose into the business. And you're talking about, like what kind of decisions we can make. And quite a lot of things we've done might be decisions that if we had investors might be a tricky thing to sell, because so one thing we do is, for every ticket sold through the platform, we donate a penny to our climate charity partners, and so far it's like been over £400,000 we've donated to these charities. And it's like one of those things where it means, it's a decision that we can make, at our discretion, and gives us more purpose, gives us more meaning, and gives us more motivation to want to grow.
Amazing. Let's just spend a minute or two on like present purpose, and then we'll get back to the decisions, the trade-offs you made in order to be able to have this what feels like luxury of freedom of choice now. So how do you think about the purpose of Ticket Tailor these days? So you've mentioned the 400,000 charity. What are some of those charities? To what extent do you sort of share the proceeds of growth around the team? Like, talk to me about some of those things that give your life purpose as a founder.
Yeah, so on a personal level, my purpose is, with the opportunity I've got, I guess the reflection I had was like, it's an amazing opportunity to be running a business that's found some success and works so naturally. And so my purpose is, well, what like, there's some power that comes with that, and what do I want to do with that power? Like, what do I want to say? What do I want the meaning of, when all said and done, the meaning of that business to be? And I think what's really clear is, if you run a business and the business is profitable, then you can there's better ways of doing business than the way that the businesses are traditionally done. And I guess like we just this is the day of the general election results, and everyone's been voting yesterday on the a lot on what they want the economy to be like. And I think there's this idea that we can we choose our governments, and it's the government's responsibility to make sure society is fair and whatever. But actually, I think as a business owner, you've got a lot of influence as well, and you've got a lot of power in your world in terms of how money flows and how things should be and what fair really looks like. And so so I think there's a lot that didn't sit right with me as I was growing my business that felt like, why is it done that way? That doesn't, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I felt almost like alienated, almost felt like, at times it was like, I felt like, am I like anti-capitalist or something like that? Like felt really kind of disenchanted with it. But actually, as I've like, there's a lot that I've learned and a lot that's good as well about how businesses work and found my groove, I suppose. And yeah, I think the way that it can be, you can easily fall into a trap where you think money is bad or growth is bad, when going down those kind of routes. Because when you look at companies that have grown, so drastically and bad things are happening, then it looks like, oh, that's because growth is bad. But what is bad is growth at all costs, and obsessive growth for the sake of it is bad. And that's where it ends up. That's where it ends up when everything gets abstracted down to just the dollar and just the like kind of delivering for investors. We remove all the remove everything else, and it just becomes about that one thing. And so bad decisions get made. And I think I guess like being an independent business, not having investors, we've been able to think about how we grow our business more compassionately and more meaningfully. So we kind of think about all our stakeholders, and we think about our customers, our team, and then the planet and our community as well. And how do we make sure we call it growth on purpose? We come up with this kind of like model. We call it growth on purpose. And as a company grows, typically things around it can get worse. For stakeholders, and we see it time and time again. And so we don't want that to happen, and we don't want that to be a cost of our growth as much as we can help it. So we want to be honest about all the negative stuff that happens as a result of our growth. And we want to be like making as much positive impact as well as a result of our growth. So we always want to link it to growth and to our success. So a few of the things we do, is like we have a profit share scheme where we share 15% of the profits across the team. And we don't do that, it's not based on like their salary or their job title. It's just shared out equally because, everyone's put in, salaries are already like set at a market, like a competitive market rate. So it's already been done. Like the idea of then doing bonuses on that as well is a bit, I don't know, for me, the idea of rewarding team for success we've created, where their type of job sits, on the market, doesn't come into it. So we do this like profit share at the end of the year, 15%. We share it out equally, and there's a bunch of things we do for our customers as well. Like one thing is like keeping low fees and having 50% charity discounts, and customer support for. We have 24/7 customer support, and that's for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're running free events. Or you're, our top paying customer. Everyone gets 24/7 instant customer support with humans, with our customer support team. And I think that's really important. I think one thing that our competitors overlook, because they're perhaps driven by like investor forces, is the importance of a lot of the community events that happen. And that doesn't come through in dollar amounts to us. That doesn't come through, if there's someone running a community event that's, bringing people together around a passion, then it doesn't matter that only makes £3 or £0 for us. It doesn't matter because we still want that. It's still important that happens. There's still value in that. And I think that's hard to value when you're just looking at the bottom line. And then kind of coming back to the planet, and is like, one thing is about obviously, as businesses grow, we produce more carbon, or we have more impact. We're using more resources, and so being very deliberate and very thorough about measuring that and understanding it, and being honest about it, is really important to us. And then also like removing it, like it's not. I think the thing about carbon removals is they're not perfect, and but there's also varying qualities as well. So we like make sure we get high quality removals to remove the carbon that we produce. And then, in terms of being transparent about it, we then like work out our carbon footprint for the year, and we divide it by the number of tickets that come through the platform, and then we show it to our customers, and we say, look, this is the carbon cost of using our software, and this is the amount. You've done this many tickets. This is your carbon cost of using our software. And then alongside that, we show, and this is how much we say we've removed this. We've bought high quality removals to remove this, and then also like how much we've done through our penny for the planet. So if they've sold 1,000 tickets, then it's like we've also put £10 towards our penny for the planet scheme as well. So I think that transparency and that there's a whole lot more we can do here as well about educating our customers and bringing climate more present to our dashboard. And even the climate impact of digital products is not talked about a great deal, but that's something we can bring awareness to that. So where we found a lot of purpose in I've found a lot of purpose in thinking about how can we use this business as an opportunity to create some change, or to try and inspire a more purposeful and less extreme version of how we do capitalism. How can we make it more compassionate? How can we bring the soul back into it? And the results are really good. Particularly our customer happiness and our team happiness are very, very high. And as a result, our growth is good, and we have very decent profit margins and so on. So we end up feeling like we're in a very healthy place. We don't have like rocket ship growth, but we're in a place where we're doing like 30% growth every year, it doesn't feel like. It feels like that's very stable. It feels like we're on very solid foundations with that, which I'd much prefer than having like rocket ship growth that feels like this could be pulled away from us because I don't know, whatever.
Well, the great tragedy of pursuing rocket ship growth, of course, is most founders who you meet who've taken VC money on the pursuit of triple, double growth rates actually aren't even matching your growth rate anyway. So it's the worst of all worlds. I mean, I can imagine people listening to this, and you're going to have newbies that haven't made any decisions or mistakes yet, thinking, John is my new hero. This sounds amazing. And then you're going to have the founders that have accidentally become rapacious capitalists rolling their eyes and thinking, well, it's all good for you, Jonny. I'm a good person too, but I just am where I am. So let's talk about how, like, the journey and how you've ended up where you are, the decisions and the trade-offs you made. And I'm really interested in two areas. I'm interested in conscious trade-offs where you did the hard right thing. And then I'm as interested in accidental trade-offs where you did the right thing and it was hard, but it's because the easier option perhaps wasn't available to you.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So let's go back. So how did this thing all get started then, Jonny?
It got started. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like a natural entrepreneur. I'm a developer. My background is, I'm a shy developer type. Is like my background kind of grew up, learning to code at a young age, and was very much into it. And so I was building websites for people, and was building a few ticketing websites, and was getting more and more demand for it. I could see there was an opportunity where the internet back in 2010, where there were ticket agencies that really sit in the middle between ticket buyers and event organizers, and try and like dominate that whole thing. And then agencies were getting disrupted, left, right, and center by the internet, because you didn't need the middleman anymore. And then, then this idea of software as a service was coming out as well. Basecamp was quite inspiring about like they're just renting software. So the idea initially was I can rent ticket software to people, and that's kind of how it started. I started it as a side project whilst kind of working on, whilst freelancing. So I didn't let any of my clients go. I was still like, making sure I was paying the bills, just working on it, like doing some late nights for about 6 months, and Yeah, and I've been trying to look for a product business. I think the thing with freelancing, as everyone knows, or doing kind of agency model, is like um, it's you're selling your time, and as soon as you sold all your time, then you just feel like, oh, I've got to hire someone, and then that idea of like hiring to then fill a pipeline is just it's not fun. If you're into software development, hiring and sales is not fun. It's the really boring bit. So I didn't want to grow. I didn't want to grow a web development shop. I thought I need a product. So I tried a few, and this is the one that this is the one that stuck, or the one that felt the most. Felt like this is probably. I think there's a lot of people relate to this where spending a lot of time building if you're a software developer and you build a side project, it's really good fun. You've got this green field to create whatever you want, and you're learning new stuff, and then you get to a product that's nearly close to showing someone, and then that's where you're like, oh crap, I've actually got to go and speak to people now. I've got to see if anyone wants this. And there's the bit where previous projects had failed because I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do now. That seems too hard. I'm just going to start something different. I remember with this one, just feeling like I put so much effort into it, and then being really nervous about, whether anyone would actually want it. And I really had to take a leap of courage. And I thought, I'll do some cold calling. I'll just phone up some nightclubs. I went onto Google Maps and I brought Brick Lane up, and I was just like, I'm just going to go down Brick Lane on Google Maps and just call each one. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't pick up the phone. I just didn't have the courage. So then I did what I always do then in that scenario, which is like, okay, I need a self-help book basically to get me through this. So I found this self-help book on eliminating fear from cold calling. And the book turned up, and I literally just like read the first few pages. And the first few pages just gave me enough perspective and motivation, to be like, okay, it's not that I need to learn how to do cold calling. It's just I needed that kick up the bum. Those first few, so I didn't read the book. I just got those first few pages, and it did the job. And I made 3 phone calls, and the third phone call got through to the manager of a club on Brick Lane, a cabaret club, and got a demo, and they agreed to buy the plan when it was ready. They agreed, went around for a meeting, and they agreed. And I didn't do any more cold calling. I just did that. There's a massively successful massive hit rate, right? But it was just so nerve wracking, and it gave me enough. Having that one customer was like enough for me to be like, this is the one I need to get over the line. So, and I kind of guess coming back to like, not being that savvy entrepreneur, that's not, I certainly wasn't, because cold calling, had success with it, and then I was like, no, it's too stressful. I don't want to do it. And same thing happened with Google Ads. I put some money into Google Ads, and then I remember spending like £100, and then someone signed up to one of the top plans, and I was like, oh, phew, thank God for that. I can now stop the Google Ads because they've paid for themselves. I was just like so nervous about like all these things that obviously the real the kind of the more savvy logic would be like, oh well, that's paid for itself, I should do more of that, as opposed to like, oh phew, I haven't lost anything there, I should stop doing that. And I guess getting those first few customers was a case of trying out all these different things, and having some success with them. SEO was good for us, word of mouth was good for us. I did some cold emailing as well. But like, again, like our pricing was so low. Like I think people were paying anywhere between £6 a month to £80 a month. And so, even managed to get quite a bit of traction. And I think having low pricing, as when launching, was actually, it's a good thing, because it means it removes a barrier. I really wanted to prove that people wanted it.
How long did it take for it to reach the scale where it could support you financially?
So it took about a year. And for me, it wasn't really. I set that at £2,000 a month, and obviously that wasn't the full amount I took home, because that was there's stuff to pay for as well, like hosting and whatever, office rent and things. But I set that as the point at which I can take the leap. I can let go of my clients when I get to £2,000 a month, and I can survive whilst it goes to £4,000 a month or something like that. But taking that leap bit was a real letting go of my clients and thinking about being on it full time. I was, again, being the naive guy of not being, not knowing what I was doing. I just didn't really know what to do. I didn't know how to because the growth had been organic, it's like, what do I do now? What's the thing I do now to get it from £2,000 to £4,000 a month? Especially now I've got more time to put into it. It's not just a case of waiting and doing a little bits and seeing what comes of it. And around that time, so that was when I thought, got more involved in the community. I had an office in Old Street, and 2010 was around the time when it was all kicking off. I think they called it the Silicon Roundabout.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's all about like the tech community in London, trying to compete with what was going on over in the States. And so I got involved in a lot of the went to a lot of pitching events and talked about TicketTailor. At one of the pitching events, and these are just pitching events just to kind of like just to show off your product, what you're working on. Someone asked me if I was bootstrapped, and I didn't actually know what the word meant. I was like, "What is bootstrapped?" And I was like, "Oh, do you have any investment?" And I was like, "No. Why would I have investment?" I was so naive to the market that we know today of how like startups work. And so the more I learned about investment, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good actually. Why wouldn't I want some money in the bank to give me some security and to like have more people around to like help me understand how to grow this thing. And so like I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go and pitch for investment. That's clearly what I need to do because that's what all the other tech companies are doing. And I remember I was pitching for £400,000 investment, and but I didn't have a clue actually how to spend £400,000. It was like such a, I couldn't quite grasp what that kind of money did or how to spend that. It's like it was such a different realm for me. So I didn't get investment. I think I went to a few pitches, and investors picked lots of holes in the pitch, and
Can you remember the main objections? I mean, thank God, right? Like, it's awesome of you to be so transparent about the fact you've landed in this great place that we all admire and many people would envy. You could have easily ended up on the same path as those sort of like reluctant, rapacious capitalists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a few things that saved me. Like one was the kind of just not being savvy enough. And I guess like, one thing I was also exploring as well is like bringing on a co-founder, because I knew that wasn't my skill set pitching to investors. And so, I could have brought on a co-founder. We could have easily created a very slick pitch that was more, someone more savvy, someone more kind of commercially minded. I think
Also, you're very savvy, by the way, but I know what you mean. Someone more full of themselves.
no, but I mean, I wasn't savvy at the time, I guess. It's like, it's and I guess also commercially focused. I was more excited about bringing the customers on board than I was about the reality that our pricing was too low. People
Yeah.
tell me our pricing's too low, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to change it. I want to, so
Was that one of their objections? They looked at it and they're like, "You're going to have to sell a shitload of tickets." For
yeah, that was one. Yeah. So it's like this business model like it doesn't stack up. And then another objection was just like the ideas I had for growth. Just like I guess I didn't know. I didn't know like how growth how you artificially create growth, how non-organic growth, how you create it. I still don't. No. Yeah, so I had those objections, and then the other thing that kind of like set me on a path was just meeting someone else who was familiar with the bootstrapper community. I said before that I didn't know what bootstrapping meant, and then I met some guy at another event who was like, "Oh, do you know there's a whole bunch of people like he was bootstrapping, really cool business." And just like the language he was using just resonated with me so much. He's talking much more about like enjoying life and having a business that supports that. And a lifestyle business essentially. And I was like, that sounds amazing. So he introduced me to things like MicroConf, which is a conference all about like bootstrap businesses and all these podcasts and things. And it's like, wow, okay, loads of people are doing this. This is amazing. And so we moved into an office together, and then we then became that kind of as one man businesses. We became that support that you get when you kind of grow out a business or have a co-founder. And we would go for lunch together, and our businesses are at similar stages, so we could do the same. We just talked about growth hacks all the time. That was like our favorite thing to talk about. And he hired a customer support agent. I was struggling with my customer support, and he was struggling with his. And as I guess you gathered, I've kind of always been I'm quite like averse to risk, with a couple of those things that I was talking about before. But and he was talking about hiring a customer support agent, and I just thought, oh, that just seems so risky. They're not going to do it as well as I want them to do it, or whatever, And he went and did it, and he hired like 4 customer support agents and chose the best one. Like kind of did a probation with 4 and chose the best one. I was like, great, I'm just going to copy what you did. And so it was, like it took all that discovery and risk out of it by having that support and having that kind of that person around who really related to the way that I was doing business.
What
But
revenue
then we
level were
found
you at
others as well.
then, Jonny?
Sorry, say again.
What revenue level were you at when you made that first hire, roughly?
Yeah. I think about 4,000, 5,000 MRR.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could afford it?
Yeah, I could afford it. Yeah.
And it
Could
was
afford
getting
it.
pretty painful to not have the person, I'm assuming. Like, I'm guessing we're going to pick up a trend here of hiring when it's unbearably painful.
Yeah, I mean, it's like half my time on customer support. I think that's really important, as a founder. And you can tell yourself that story for too long, though. Like, it's really important as a founder to be doing customer support. And because you learn a lot, but you can still learn a lot by spending 10% of your time doing customer support, So it was good to, good to like go through that pain of letting go of something, you can, yeah.
So just to summarize then, so you started, you had the agency, and then that gave you the insight that there was this opportunity. You reluctantly did some cold calls, got your first customers, which then sort of compounded because it was successful. And you thought about raising money because everyone was raising money. You wouldn't naturally didn't want to grow inorganically a level of aggression that would have excited investors. So suddenly found yourself on the bootstrapping path, but bumped into a bootstrapper and realized that your people were these other folks. And just thank God you just by that point, you just hadn't taken on a more aggressive co-founder and or investors. And at this point you're on the path to kind of doing your own thing. Were there any major further kind of potential forks in the road between there and where you are now, where you took a path that supports this working with purpose, but you could easily or accidentally have taken the other?
Yeah, I mean, there's something that happened as well just before I met that person, which could be a whole podcast worth of content. But I actually sold the business and work. So you could say this is a long journey, right? It's like 14 years. So that point where I got to £2,000 and was thinking, how do I get this to £4,000? Trying to get the investment. I had a call from Time Out. And they were like, oh, we want to do ticketing. They were thinking about being a customer. And those conversations evolved, and then it turned into acquisition conversations. And yeah, it was a funny decision because it was one, it was like, well, this would be amazing, like experience to go through selling a business. You hear about people who sell businesses and you think, oh,
Totally.
that sounds amazing. I want to be that person and have that like bit of success under my belt. But then at the same time, it was a bit like, well, this thing's just gotten started. And it wasn't like, obviously it wasn't, it was a decent amount of money, but it wasn't like I can retire kind of money. So it was, and it was like, I probably could have made the same money, definitely could have made the same money carrying on the business. So it was a real trade-off. But one thing that I realized I really didn't have was like experience working with people as well. And so it's like, okay, there's this opportunity where I can go and get some experience working with people and have this story in my of a success story to an extent of building a business and selling it. So I went and worked at Time Out for 2 years as a product manager. The idea was to integrate TicketTailor into Time Out into their website, but the project didn't work out and ended up buying it back. Like the 2 years later.
Are you happy to? I know we could. I would love to have a proper conversation about this, but like the abridged version, then are they like? Can you describe the 6 months before you were able to buy it back? Like how? Because that is fascinating. I
Yeah,
mean,
I know, and
I love how.
it sounds very simple, right? Sell a business buy back, but it's honestly, it did not play out. It was very like surprising how it played out. So yeah, I was. The integration project at Time Out didn't work out, and my job just changed into product manager on a different product, and I was enjoying it. I was learning stuff, and really nice people. Really, had some really good friends there, and but yeah, after I had 18 months, had to work there, and after 18 months, a really good friend had handed in his notice, and I don't know, I just felt like I'm not really I'm not really I'm not developing as fast as I can develop a lot faster, or I want to go back and do something on my own, or and at the same time as well, the management team was changing as well. So there was a lot of change going on, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna hand in my notice. I'd had quite a long notice period because I think, because I've been brought in on this acquisition, I had a 3-month notice period, and I said, but the work I was doing didn't warrant that. I wasn't doing that important work. So I said, can I just leave after a month? Can I just do a month's notice period? And they said no, because we've still got your business and we don't know what to do with it. So TicketTailor is still ticking along at £2,000 a month in the background. And I'm still like doing the customer support. It's not a lot, but I just do it at the end of my day at time out. I'd just be like, answering the emails or whatever. And so they're like, we can't, we don't know what to do with your business. And I just thought, oh, what a shame. Like, what a waste of like, there's this thing that I put so much love into
No
that is just
way.
like sat there. That's a burden on this company. And my friend Lee, who you've met actually, he said, oh, well, what you need to do is you need to, you've got an opportunity here to buy it back. And you just need to pitch it as the most attractive option for them to sell it back to you. Because if it's a burden to them, well, carry on running it will be a pain in the bum because they've got to train people. Shutting it down will be a pain because that will take time, and they've got to transition clients or whatever. Like could create brand damage for timeout if they, I don't know, whatever. But so he said, just make it really easy for them. Make it an absolute no brainer. So that's what it did. It created a few options, put them all in a spreadsheet, and kind of had a buying back price to cover all the transaction costs, so all the legal fees and stuff. Just so it's just like for them, it was just like, oh, this is the option where we just don't have the business anymore, and there's no negative, like the legal fees are covered basically for getting rid of it. And so then the 3-month notice period was quite handy because I was still in the building chasing the the CFO, every week being like, oh, can we get that heads of terms signed? Because it's obviously not on anyone's agenda. It's like, this is like the annoying thing now that it's just like, we're focusing on something else,
It's like a rounding error.
Yeah, exactly. So then it was really good being in the building because we could get the heads of terms done and I could get the business back. And then it was great because I had a really fresh mind. And I thought, that was when I thought, oh, perhaps I should go back and think about this investing thing. And that's when I met the guy, Pietro, who's the bootstrapper who like set me on the right path.
Oh my gosh.
So
I hadn't appreciated that actually there was quite a long period then from before then you started to think of yourself as a bootstrapper. The exit wasn't after that, it was before that.
yeah, it was before that. Yeah.
Okay. So then you come back in, now you've bought it back. You are now the savvy Johnny that I know, albeit still not like a douchey, greedy one. This is why we all love you. I know we don't have like forever. Like in the 10 minutes or so that we've got while I've still got you, what are there any other big forks in the road from that point of buying it back to now? Because I'd love to finish up by giving folks like just some advice and like helping people kind of get clear on their purpose and making some of the hard choices, particularly folks that aren't in a weird way as lucky as you. You're kind of lucky that you were unlucky, right? Like
yeah, there's so much luck. There's so much that's played into it. That's just like, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't have planned. It'd be impossible to plan the journey that the business has been
totally.
on.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that some folks are going to end up in a worse position by having earlier lucky breaks than you. So
Yeah.
yeah, were there any other big kind of forks in the road?
So at this point, bootstrapping, I say like 5,000 MRR with my friend in the building with me, and we find some more bootstrappers, and we're real support for each other. It's absolutely so much fun. Basically running a lifestyle. I get a dog. Office is like walking distance. We take long lunches. We're loving it. And still, don't have any employees. None of us have employees. We have like contractors helping us. Online, which is responsibility, but it's not our responsibility of having employees coming into the building and seeing, watching you work, or like, you can basically do whatever you want. So it was really nice. And I remember when I got to 8K MRR and I was like, okay, I'd stick at this point. This is enough money now. And if I could just, and as always, like there's this nervousness that it's going to be taken away from me. And it's like, if I could stick, I would stick right now. But I'm so glad I didn't, because, a bit later, I don't know, 6 months later or something like that, I was redesigning the website for the fourth time, and I'm still not happy with it. And I guess it's a point where I'm like feeling a real limit of my abilities, and I suppose similar to kind of when I was at the £2,000 trying to think, how do I get to £4,000? It's like I'm stuck now. I can't get any further. I can't redesign this website. I've tried 4 times and I still can't. And so that's when like a friend of mine who's freelance designer, he had just become available, and I was like, "Oh, come and work with me for a few months." And it was so good working with him because decisions were getting made, the design was looking great, everything leveled up, and yeah, sure, I felt some responsibility. Well, I didn't so much when he was contracting, but then I said to him, "Do you want to join? Do you want to come on board as a part-time designer?" And then that's kind of a real shift change then, of getting mentally prepared to step out of being a lifestyle business and becoming a growth business. I guess what was also apparent was like the opportunity is like, yeah, okay, the business is doing well, but it was easy to see that we could be a much bigger player in the ticketing market. We could see that like so many people would benefit from this software. So it was like, I want to make the most of that. And so I guess that fork in the road was then about really embracing the idea of hiring a team and being a manager, and that comes with more effort. It comes with hiring effort for a start, then management effort, and at that point, for me, it was getting a coach was absolutely critical, because I wasn't the best manager. Obviously, my experience was 2 years working at Time Out of working with people, and I trod on a lot of toes at Time Out, and So, and I think it was working with my coach was like a real therapy session, all about relationships, right? It's about like how to like create good relationships where I've been in control of everything and now I need to let go of control and empower people, and it just wasn't something I was used to. It wasn't a way my mind worked. So that was a real shift change. And then the next one of that, so that was like the shift change of like, okay, we need to hire people, and the obvious people to hire were engineers, and obviously had this part-time designer. And so we were essentially a technology business of like five engineers and a couple more, but yeah, that's not so strategic, right? That's just like, oh, we've got loads of engineering work to do. We can hire engineers all day and get that work done. But then the hard thing was then, I just knew I was doing everything else in the business, and I knew that wasn't sustainable, or that we were missing more opportunities because, I'd say, I'm not the most commercially savvy person. And also like the ops stuff was like overwhelming and dull and for me and so on. So and also all these other aspirations of like how I wanted to grow the business. I mentioned earlier about feeling disillusioned with how businesses grow, and then thinking, oh, what I really want to do is be able to focus more on that side of things. And so then the next kind of big conscious decision was putting in a leadership team. And there's a mentioned kind of at the very beginning of the podcast that I've got this amazing leadership team in place. But the thing that was hard about that was it took a few mishires first, and I think the thing that is hard to realize, or took me time to realize, was I really needed people who were experienced and like make that investment, make that leap of being like, I need to get great people because I need people who are better than me, and not the people I'd hired before weren't necessarily better than me, but like they need to not just be better than me, they need to be like self motivated, and they also need to be the people that are going to be pushing their department. And so found amazing people who were very much like our commercial guy, very much like pushing on the commercial side, our ops person very much pushing on the ops side. And so yeah, it was hard, like, because obviously the outlay of that commitment of making senior hires, hadn't done senior hires, always, as you said before about this habit of like hiring when you really need it. And it was like hiring when you really need it. And there's also like hiring at a level where it's like, what can we get away with? Because we don't want to
Totally.
keep it as lean as possible. But this involved actually taking more of a leap, into the future, and being like, no, this is what we need. This is what we're going to need to get to where we want to get to. And so getting that leadership team in place and making those hires. And then that then set us up for, not only that, but I also needed people who aligned with this half-baked vision I have around business as a force for good. which it very much was like half baked. It was more just like, I've got this uneasiness, especially hiring for commercial role. It's we make compromises on our commercials all the time in favor of purpose. Like we're trading. We do conferences in the States, and we're trading off like, how can we. Should we do less conferences because we want to reduce the number of flights we're taking, or should we send less people, or can we? We are always trying to, or like, can we keep our fees lower for charities? Can we not increase our prices that much? All these things where we're trying to balance this, like what feels meaningful, what feels right, with also what is like commercially. We know we're leaving a lot of money on the table in a lot of places, and so finding that commercial person who empathized with that and believed in it as well, and that's who we found. And so that was amazing.
I can see how that would be incredibly hard, because it's not like you can go and find the most aggressive commercial person, and they're going to be inspired by one day buying this business when you sell it to private equity or
Yeah.
whatever. It's quite different. John, in the last couple of minutes, like to tie all this all together, do you have any advice for folks that are quite early in their journey? Maybe they don't know themselves as well as you do now. Do you really just need to put it in the lap of the gods and just, you just hope that you get a bit of misfortune at the right time to put you in, get more freedom later? Or do you think it's possible for people to steel themselves by projecting forward and thinking about the life they want later?
Yeah, I do. I guess my first bit of advice would be like, keep optionality open. This is something I read. It was articulated. I read in a Stripe article, but it really resonates with my journey and how I think about things now, which is just like, when you're making decisions, sometimes we're closing doors, and those doors can't be reopened, and they're very serious decisions, and you want to avoid those as much as possible. And so taking investment is closing a door, right? It's closing a door on a freedom. And because you can't get out of that, you now got this stakeholder, which you can't, it's what you can get out of it, but it's difficult to get out of that. Your job has changed. So, and it's not just investors, there's other things as well, but keep optionality open as much as possible. Be very aware when you're walking through and closing a door, because that is restricting your future. The other thing is like the value of keeping things simple. I think when I'm working at Time Out, it's an incredibly complicated business. They had so many different things going on, and the only way to solve complexity really is, well, it's not the only way, but the way that most businesses solve complexity is by adding more people. And then that brings more complexity in itself. And the business can't be lean when you've got more people and people are solving complexity. So really, like, another reason why we've taken a long time, 14 years to get to where we are, and the reason why we're still growing slowly, relative to how fast we could grow, is because we really take time to keep things simple. We really like, we know we could make more money if we became a payment processor, if we did white label payments, for example. But that complexity that brings is massive. Stripe does all that for us. And so we're saying, we're saying we don't need to be making that money right now. We don't need it. Money's not like our main problem. So let's not take on that complexity. At some point we might take it on. At some point we might say like, oh yeah, we can afford to do that now. But I think the habit or the expectation is to chase every carrot and to be like, oh, there's an opportunity there. Why aren't you taking it? Especially if you've got investors, right? If we had investors, they'd be like, you're mad to not be taking this opportunity that could potentially double your revenue. But we can take that decision. So yeah, the value of keeping things simple, again, gives you a lot of freedom, gives you like headspace, and and keeps your business lean. Keeps high profit margins. It keeps your team small, and I think that's something we optimize for all the time. Like we say, we're not going to get more than 30 people, and that's like and that not only means we like really stress about hiring amazing people, but also means we stress about not hiring people as well. So like, how can we not hire this thing? Or where are we wasting time? What can we automate? How can we stay as lean as possible? So I think that kind of keep it simple. And then that kind of like, I think that I can't remember how you just phrased it, but something like manifesting or something like that. But yeah, like that moment of making that leap of hiring our leadership team came about through an exercise I did with my coach, where he forced me to envision my life in 2 years' time, and what I wanted it to be like, and then step back in time and kind of and understand what decisions needed to be made. Like what needs to, okay, if that's where you are in 2 years, where are you in 18 months? And actually we did it month by month. Where are you in that? Where are you that? Where are you that? And what became apparent on when we get back to the present day is like, okay, I urgently need to hire these two people, and I need to get the job ads up today. So I came out of that session from thinking like, oh, I don't know if I should do it. Maybe I'll do it in a few months, or perhaps I should tone it down a little bit. It feels all risky. To feeling like, oh my gosh, this is urgent. And so I do think that stuff works. I do think like having that really clear intention, and I'd recommend using a coach to help with that as well, because it made it very practical as opposed to it feeling like just dreaming something's going to happen and then it happens. Obviously, you have to put stuff into action for it to happen. But yeah, no, I totally believe in it. And I think having those visions of what you want, what is it you actually want, and I think the tech industry has glamorized acquisitions and it's glamorized investment as like this is success, and
Yes.
and I don't think it is. I've been through an acquisition, and it was.
And I've taken investment.
So I think it's like, what is it? There's don't follow what you're being told. What is it that actually you really want? And you might not know what it is you really want as well. And that's why keeping optionality open, that's why keeping those doors open is important, and giving yourself that freedom as much as you possibly can.
I couldn't agree more. Knowing what you don't want and picturing forward is such good advice. Jonny, thank you so much for doing this. I've loved it. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure people listening will have too.
Thanks so much, Rob. Really, really great pleasure to be here.